I mean, this is evidently was inspired by
Motorcycle helmet to protect that precious
part of the property here. This is where I keep.
So we're building this bike for a first Black Widow.
Chopper, but it doesn't look like it.
You know, I figured let me just run you through this project. In many ways, this is to me.
So in true
American Chopper gave us everything from family feuds to bitter legal battles and then some. It was a show that carried its weight in drama, and today we're revealing the real reason why it ended. The cast. Okay, so you already know that the Orange County Choppers motorcycle store, located in the town of Newburgh, New York, was owned by Paul Tootle Sr. and his son, Paul Tootle Jr. The show was known for the crazy arguments between the father-son duo, so when its popularity shot up, it even inspired a number of memes on the internet. Truth is, Orange County Choppers gained fame in the 1990s when they began constructing choppers for local clients who preferred vintage classic bikes. The company expanded so quickly that soon after, a number of famous people and businesses began commissioning extremely costly classic motorcycles for themselves. The popular Black Widow project was the first ever featured in American Chopper, and it served as the model for the shop's first, less expensive bike series, the Web. Oh, and the movie-inspired chopper I, Robot can't not be mentioned when we're talking about the greatest motorcycles they had, right? Also, the football bike, which was commissioned by the New York Mets, is among their most exceptional and well-known motorcycles. But that wasn't the only big collaboration for them. They've worked for businesses like GoDaddy, Hewlett-Packard, Wendy's, and numerous sports teams. Even though some of these companies only participated on the show to market themselves, the team created some amazing stuff, despite several challenges like tight deadlines, tight budgets, and personal issues. Paul Tootle Sr. was a key cast member and the founder of Orange County Choppers. Aside from the amazing motorcycles the shop constructed, the show's enormous success among viewers was a result of his vicious arguments with his son Paul Jr. In case you're wondering, he carried on managing the business following the cancellation of the Orange County Choppers. Probably carries on the fights with his son, too. Speaking of fights, Thomas Derbyshire, a business partner, sued Paul Sr. in 2017 on the grounds that he had used the money Thomas had contributed to the store for his own benefit. In 2018, Paul Sr. declared bankruptcy following the premiere of the American Choppers renewal. After relocating to Florida, he declared Orange County Choppers, which had been headquartered in New York State from the beginning, would now be based there. A podcast called Behind the Scenes at OCC was also going around for anyone interested in hearing some juicy behind-the-scenes stories from the boss. In Florida, he established OCC Roadhouse and Museum in 2021, which includes a restaurant, a performance venue, and a museum. Paul Sr. is still in charge of everything Orange County Chopper. As for his son, Paul Jr., he left OCC and American Chopper with a vengeance, and he established Paul Jr. Designs, a design company in Montgomery, New York, in 2009. And guess what? PJD began constructing and repairing motorcycles, directly competing with OCC, after serving a year as a non-compete after his expulsion from OCC. Since then, he has collaborated with Blizzard Entertainment on a web series called Azeroth Choppers, in which PJD designed motorcycles for the well-known video game World of Warcraft in 2014. Plus, PJD constructed 2 motorcycles for the 2016 Paramount Pictures film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Out of Shadows. He's doing well for himself, no? Oh, and in addition to maintaining an active career in motorcycling, Paul Jr. also founded PJD Electric, a company that manufactures electric bicycles. Now for Paul Sr.'s youngest son, Mikey Tootle, who lives with his wife, Paula Tootle. Yeah, no shortages of Pauls in this family. Mikey helped in the shop and joined OCC as an assistant general manager. In the show, he often provided much-needed comic relief and worked to keep things calm between Paul Jr. and Paul Sr. Later, he quit OCC in order to take care of himself and rebuild his relationship with his father. He also checked himself into rehab due to his alcoholism. Then, along with starting an art gallery, Mikey founded FarQ LLC, a pasta sauce company. He then went back to work, lending a hand and contributing around OCC and PJD. His current endeavor is a weekly podcast in which he co-hosts with Al Franco, discussing their life, experiences, and the good and terrible times they had at OCC. You can also catch him on one of his podcast episodes alongside Vinny DiMartino, with whom he remains close till date. Speaking of Vinny, he left in 2007 to open Via Force Customs, a motorcycle shop in Rock Tavern, New York. He claimed that there was no potential for growth in the show and that the only way he could achieve his goal of owning his own store someday was to strike out on his own. You might not know this, but Vinny continued to serve as a consultant for Paul Jr. on all sorts of things at PJD because they've been friends since childhood. While still managing V-Force Customs, he joined PJD in 2010 and made an appearance in American Chopper, Sr versus Jr. After that, Vincent shuttered V-Force Customs and left the motorcycle industry. In 2013, he founded DiMartino Motorsports, a car and truck repair business located in Walden, New York. Remember Rick Petco? Well, he remained friends with Paul Sr. and Jr. even after the split of the core OCC partnership. But Rick remained at OCC and carried on working with Paul Sr. after Paul Jr. And in 2012, he invited the two Tootles to his wedding. Fortunately for Rick, fixing motorcycles wasn't his first love. He had always been a metalworker at heart, something he pursued after leaving American Choppers in high school. He currently runs a small forge out of his house named RPD and Amp Company while serving as the lead fabricator for Pocono Mountain Harley-Davidson. Using that forge, he not only works closely with the one and only Dama Steel Company, but also makes distinctive knives and wedding bands. If you ever visit his Facebook page, you can see that he still has a great passion for motorbikes and enjoys racing antique bikes on a variety of surfaces, including sand and dirt. And now, let's talk about Cody, who arrived at OCC as an intern at the age of 14. He quickly won over the fans, and even though he lacked experience, his co-stars and viewers were extremely amazed at his exceptional abilities. Tootle and the company paid for him to attend the American Motorcycle Institute when he graduated from high school. Then, Cody left OCC in 2007 to work at V-Force Customs with Vinny DiMartino. And then things got a bit awkward. He sued Paul Tootle Sr. and Orange County Choppers, alleging he was not appropriately paid for using his work and reputation long after he left the firm. Although the charges were withdrawn and the matter was settled, their professional relationship was strained. Still, Cody briefly went back to work at PJD with Paul Jr. He currently works for a utility firm far from motorcycles and stays off of social media, avoiding interactions with both fans and the general public. As for Mike Rowe, after leaving American Choppers in 2010, he went on to work on the sets of several other shows, including Dirty Jobs, Deadliest Catch, Ghost Hunters, and Returning the Favor. In addition to having his own whiskey and being a well-known advocate for trade vocations, he also produced a TV show called The Story Behind the Story, which was based on his own podcast. Oh, and he has won numerous honors throughout his life, including the Boy Scouts of America's Distinguished Eagle Scout Award. He's not the only one who completely changed careers, though. Designer Jason Pohl had considered enlisting in the Marine Corps when he started his career goals in high school. But after being awarded a scholarship, he chose to pursue a bachelor's degree in fine arts instead. He then started creating video games, one of which being a pinball game with designs of helicopters that were licensed by OCC. Paul Tootle Sr. took him onto the set to design actual motorcycles after being deeply impressed. These days, Jason works as a brand advocate for SolidWorks and as a freelance industrial designer. After he left the show in 2007, Jim Pratt served as the narrator until 2012. In fact, he was also the narrator for Airplane Repo and Out of the Wild, The Alaska Experiment, Seasons 1 and 2. For the most part, people in the public eye maintain some contact with the outside world after leaving the screen. But Jim Pratt doesn't seem to be one of those people. After leaving the American Choppers show, he was almost impossible to find, even with the most FBI-esque search techniques. According to IMDb.com, he most recently worked as a radio announcer for the network TV show Bob Hart's Abishola in 2019, which starred Billy Gardell and Folake Olowofoyaku. The real reason it ended. Look, if you've ever wondered why the program is still so relevant even after its 2002 premiere, the explanation is quite simple. The show's clever motorcycle modifications and business gimmicks are what drew viewers in, but the abundance of family dysfunction is what kept them watching for a very long time. Still, despite its popularity, American Chopper was abruptly canceled in 2010. Even though other spin-offs have since been produced, fans like you must wonder why the program ended in the first place and why the subsequent airings were so brief. Today's your lucky day. American Chopper had an average audience score of 7.2 at the time of its cancellation in 2010, which indicates that many million people watched each episode. That's quite amazing, and was an excellent reason why TLC wanted to continue running the show. So it's clear that the cancellation wasn't justified by the show's low numbers. What was it then? To understand that, we must first go back to 2008, when Paul Tootle Sr. addressed his son, Paul Jr., about his tendency to arrive late to work. Paul Jr. didn't like this, and a heated argument between the father and son rapidly broke out. And if that wasn't bad enough, Paul Sr. fired him right there in front of all of their employees. Even though there was a huge argument between the father and son, Paul Jr. returned to the show several months later to replace a contractor. However, that arrangement didn't last long because, in the middle of 2009, he left once more to start his own camp stove company. At that point, Paul Sr. attempted to forcibly acquire his son's ownership stake in Orange County Choppers, sparking a court battle that continued until the end of 2010. In addition to that, the company was being sued by artist Justin Barnes and former employee Cody Connolly for fraud and design infringement. TLC, on the other hand, announced the cancellation of American Chopper in February 2010 because they couldn't wait for those court challenges to be resolved. The network refused to disclose the true reason for the cancellation, but it was clear that the Tootles' legal issues and the drama they were on with were the main factors. Paul Jr.'s ambitions to start a company designing stoves proved short-lived, as he returned to his previous career as a chopper builder. Instead of returning to his father's garage, he established Paul Jr. Designs, his own store, vowing this time not to make the same mistakes he had made in the past. His newfound independence also gave him new opportunities, as TLC cast him and his company in the August 2010 premiere of American Chopper, Sr. vs. Jr., which was the first spin-off of the original series. Paul Sr. Tootle and Orange County Choppers were also a part of Sr. vs. Jr., which put both shops in a competitive environment, but with one rule: the father and son would hardly ever speak to each other on the show. Considering the multi-million-dollar legal dispute that was going on between them off-camera, that was a wise decision. Even though Paul Sr. and Jr. collaborated to work on a bike during the 4th season of the show, their relationship was far from perfect. TLC ultimately canceled the series in 2012 with little to no explanation. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, the show's producer, Craig Piligian, was candid about the situation, acknowledging that filming the show was pretty tough for him as well because of his tumultuous relationship with Paul Jr., which eventually resulted in Tootle's termination. In spite of this, Piligian thought the program still had untapped potential. It's been a strong, tenacious show, which is why he was conflicted about the network's decision to cancel American Chopper. Craig Piligian was not wrong. Because American Chopper still had a lot of potential, its second spin-off, Orange County Choppers, had its network premiere in early 2013, but this time it debuted on CMT. The entire idea of a father-son competition was also abandoned because the focus of the show was primarily on Paul Sr. and his company. Sadly, the run of this new program was also brief. The final episode aired in early 2014. Later in the year, the basketball legend Shaquille O'Neal's custom helicopter was featured in the Shaq Bike special episode. Fans were happy with the one-time resuscitation of the series, but it also highlighted the unresolved relationship between Paul Sr. and Jr., because the oldest Tootle son was nowhere to be seen. Then, the return of the original series on the Discovery Channel in 2018 caught everyone off guard. Not only was it unexpected that the show was coming back to television after 4 years, but many fans were overjoyed to learn that Paul Sr. and Jr. had made up after a 10-year falling out. Restoring the relationship was not an easy job. Paul Jr. even wrote a book titled The Build, in which he discussed the difficult road he had to take to start his own company after his father, whom he less than flatteringly referred to as a monster, fired him from Orange County Choppers. Oh, and Paul Sr. acknowledged that it had affected him too, but it was also the catalyst for them to move over that awful and destructive period of their lives. Apparently, the father-son duo sat down and talked about it like adults. In the new show, father and son would not work together at the same shop, even if they were gradually mending their relationship, and fans still got to see them collaborate on a few projects. But then, American Choppers was canceled again in March 2019, after only 2 seasons of its renewal. Some fans claimed the show ended because Totul was going to Florida and wanted to become a YouTube sensation, and Discovery once again declined to provide an explanation. People then linked the cancellation to Sr.'s off-camera legal issues, despite the fact that his manager later refuted these allegations. Turns out, this time it was more about Paul Jr.'s bankruptcy and other money problems. If you remember, Discovery revealed at the beginning of 2020 that American Chopper would make a comeback to the network with a 2-hour special episode titled The Last Ride. It was already predicted that the ensemble was returning to filming the program, so the announcement wasn't shocking enough. But the idea that Paul Sr. and Jr. would be collaborating on a project, something that hadn't truly happened in years, was far more captivating than the show's brief reappearance. Ah, well, all good things must come to an end, right? But one thing stayed consistent: the many legal battles. It all started when Paul Jr. declined to sell his 20% stake ownership position in the company, citing his reluctance to abandon a venture he had built from the bottom up. Makes sense, right? At that time, Paul Sr. decided to sue his son for $1 million in damages. Little did he know he'd be coming to the courts way more than that. Paul Jr. was not going to take this lying down because, in his words, he was being forced to leave OCC by his father, and there was nothing he could do to give up his ownership stake in the garage. In December 2016, Sr.'s restaurant idea was connected to a Ponzi scam, and he returned to court in 2018 to fight a fraud accusation. But let's talk about that restaurant for a bit. Paul Totul Sr. made the decision to enter the restaurant industry by using the Orange County Choppers name, as the popularity was on the rise. The proposal included setting up a full-service restaurant, bar, microbrewery, gaming, hospitality, retail, and entertainment experience in Newburgh, New York, next to Sr.'s house and garage. That was the plan, but it seems that some investors were left with a bad taste in their mouths by the reality. The motorcycle enthusiast owed New York State more than $22,000 in unpaid taxes for the Orange County Choppers Cafe as of March 2018. When it was first opened as Orange County Choppers Roadhouse, the project was apparently troublesome from the start. Over a dozen businessmen allegedly put in between $12 and $15 million for the project, which was pitched to many investment groups at the same time. As part of a Ponzi scam, some investors said, the transaction involved the issuance of shares in paper companies that had no value at all. The company also underwent several name changes, which raised suspicions in the eyes of some. Well, Totul hasn't spoken a word about the entire scandal up to this point. It was revealed in July 2018 that Paul Sr. needed to be removed out of a facility by security during a court-mandated mediation session. This is when his bankruptcy court case caused him more than just financial concerns. According to reports, the old man lost his cool during a negotiation while he and his attorneys were before a United States bankruptcy court in New York. In this instance, his Corvette was being held by JTM Motorsports for unpaid fees. As the two attorneys were discussing the case, Paul was becoming angry. He stood up and yelled profanities before lunging across the table at the other attorney. His outburst caused the security guards to drag him out of the building. It's crazy to think that in spite of his involvement in several popular television shows and his leadership of a globally recognized business, Paul Sr. encountered many financial difficulties. The first of these surfaced when word spread that he was facing foreclosure on his Montgomery house. Documents revealed that Paul Sr. had taken out a $1.5 million mortgage on his house back in 2005. Owing to modifications made in 2013 and 2016, his mortgage balance remained over $870,000. This could be the reason he listed the house for sale and reduced the asking price to $2.49 million from nearly $500,000. Then, in March of 2018, Paul Sr. declared bankruptcy due to his debt of over $1 million to numerous creditors. He claimed to have earned around $15,000 a month working at Orange County Choppers. According to court filings, this amount did not account for any earnings from television work or other sources. The unexpected truth about this reality star's money surfaced after he filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy in February 2018. Paul Teutul Sr. stated in court filings that he owed more than $1 million to 50 creditors in total, plus $1.8 million in fee interest on his house, an additional $151,000 to Crawford, New York. In court documents, Sr. stated that he made roughly $15,000 to $16,000 a month, but needed to spend at least $20,000 a month to pay off his debts. He owed about $22,000 in restaurant taxes, in addition to his over $70,000 in credit card debt from both his personal and business accounts. Teutul was also battling a $32,000 bill from Hudson Valley Merchandising and a $51,000 claim from JTM Motorsports Inc. Apparently, he was juggling no fewer than 8 pending litigation at the time of the bankruptcy filing. In January 2019, JTM Motorsports Inc. and Teutul reached a settlement of $30,000, but the firm later sued Teutul again, claiming that he had not paid the agreed-upon amount. You might remember that the boss man declared in 2020 that he was relocating his bike business from Newburgh, New York to the Sunshine State, putting on a change in lifestyle. Well, let's be real. Paul was referring to the taxes that the Empire State Government was taking out of his bank account. So, in his pursuit of economic independence, he also had to abandon the 13,061,000 square foot headquarters they had constructed in 2008, which included a restaurant, retail store, and workplace for constructing bikes. Oh, before we wrap up about Paul Sr.'s legal troubles, let's not forget that in 2021, he was charged by a former employee of Orange County Choppers of acting discriminatorily and using racial slurs. The black worker filed a complaint with the New York State Division of Human Rights against Teutul for allegedly inciting a hostile work environment. He was at the center of yet another major steroid controversy when dentist James D'Amico admitted distributing steroids to several customers, including Paul Sr. The papers state that he received a sizable payment spread out over a 4-year period. He was charged over $51,000 for all the prescriptions he had at the time. It's time for today's subscriber pick. Did you know that after experiencing financial difficulties in 2011, the Teutuls were forced to give up their lavish OCC warehouse to their creditor GE Commercial Finance Business Corp. After that, GE sold the building to Dallas-based BRE East Mixed Asset Owner LLC. In 2016, it was sold through an online auction for around $2.3 million. Although rumors circulated about the building's potential uses, such as a brewery or convention center, it has remained unoccupied as of 2023 and isn't holding up too well. Images of the complex show that the interior of the structure has lost much of its charm, and the brick Orange County Choppers emblem on the front walkway has nearly crumbled to nothing. People say the building is cursed, causing not only severe financial ruin to whoever owns it, but also puts their life at risk. What do you think? Is that why Teutuls left? Has the curse carried on with the family? Remember to comment down below with the hashtag subscriberpick and let us know what you think. Now on to the next topic. Family problems. Usually, family members can set aside their issues and join together to celebrate during a wedding. But if we're talking about this family, you know that's not in the cards. So when Paul Teutul Jr. tied the knot with Rachel Beester in August 2010, he and his father were unable to reconcile. And when you consider the fact that Paul Teutul Sr. sued his son in December 2009 over stock options from their motorbike company, this doesn't seem strange at all. The groom's father wasn't there during the couple's vow exchange at Bonnet Island Estate in New Jersey. The American chopper patriarch was reportedly invited to the extravagant event, which featured a massive 6-tier wedding cake and $28,000 worth of flowers, but he declined the invitation. Decades later, the two seemed to have warmed up to each other, but they vowed never to work together again. Drama seems to follow this family, like when reports of Paul Sr.'s death in a motorcycle accident began to circulate. Tutul told his followers on Facebook that he was still alive and well. But that's not how this story ended. It turns out that the myth was started by a phony news website using the death of an actual biker who resembled Paul Sr. Once the truth about the incident was revealed, the news footage that had been uploaded to YouTube was taken down too. Despite his death being a hoax, the Tutul men are no strangers to adversity. They have tragically all fallen victim to addiction at some point in their lives, which could be because of the difficult upbringing associated with the cliché of being a biker, or maybe even fame. We're sure you're wondering what's keeping the Tutul's busy these days. Well, after a successful debut weekend in 2021, Paul Tutul Sr.'s OCC Roadhouse and Museum moved to a new location where he focused on producing live events in association with Bert's Barracuda Harley-Davidson. The OCC and Harley-Davidson stores partnered to host the St. Pete Bike Fest, which went on to feature more than 200 chrome marvels every year since they opened. Together, the two businesses launched a far larger project in May 2023, a 3-day exhibition that invites other enthusiasts of two-wheelers to participate in the inaugural Orange County Chopper Invitational Bike Show and Biker Build-Off competition. Participants from all over the world gave in to the temptation of showcasing their own hog wares, in addition to giving Paul Sr. the chance to display some of his own creations, such as the NASA Chopper and the FDNY 911 Fire Cycle. Competing for thousands of dollars in cash awards, over 40 bikers participated in both stock and modified divisions, while many others seized the opportunity to showcase their preferred cars. You see, there's a whole generation of gearheads who grew up watching a lot of Discovery Channel car shows, the most memorable of which was the American Chopper series. Motorcyclists found OCC's New York offices to be a fun spot to hang out, but the blow that prompted them to move to Florida offered them a blank canvas to start all over again. And boy, did Paul Tutul and his crew manage to blow the minds of motorcyclists across the globe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.